Hello everyone, welcome back to another informative video. In this video, I'm going to speak on something that I have been thinking about for quite some time. And that is to add an area or an aspect to my channel that allows me to speak with you, just casual talk. Therefore, I've come up with the idea of an aspect that just allows us to talk. So I've named it Just Talk. And of course, this would be on agriculture related matters, of course, especially crop production. So in this first episode of Just Talk, what we are going to talk about is Irish potato. Now, what we are going to talk about in regards to Irish potato is seed selection and seed preparation. Now, when you are selecting your seed, obviously there are big seeds, small seed. So it is up to you which one you choose. Now, choosing the big seed means that you can either cut them to get more than one or multiple planting material, or you can plant them as is. You can. With the small seed, you can basically plant the small seed as is. You don't have to cut it because the small seed is already small. Of course, another important thing that you need to consider is selecting disease-free seeds. You don't want to select seeds that have disease. You don't want to select seeds that are rotting, right? You want to select seeds that are firm to the touch or to the squeeze, because when it is soft when you squeeze, it is sometimes signs that it is kind of rotting, it is going. So you want to ensure that it is firm and basically looking pretty and healthy to the eyes. With that being said, after selecting your Irish potato, what you want to do after is you want to put it down to sprout, right? And you can basically put this down outside. You can leave it in your kitchen. If you are going to put it outside, you want to ensure that you put it in a cool area. You don't want to put it where too much sun is, right? Because sun will cause it to basically dry out and basically affect the sprouting process. When the Irish potato seed has sprouted, we are now going to prepare the Irish potato seed. So what you are going to do first is you want to dip your Irish potato in a fungal solution or a fungicide solution, preferably copper base, to get rid of some of the bacteria and some of the fungus that you suspect might be on the Irish potato. I'm not saying it is on it, but this goes back to the saying prevention is better than cure. This is something that I don't really see YouTubers adding in their process, and I think it is a critical part of the process. You want to basically dip the Irish potato in the fungicide solution and start off with a clean Irish potato. And if you have a big bag of Irish potato, like a 25 pound or a 50 pound, then what you can do is get a large enough container, mix your fungicide solution, and just dip the entire bag in the solution. Or if you have one Irish potato like I have here, you can basically just have a container and just dip it in, leave it to air dry. When it is air dry now, then we are ready to work with the Irish potato. Now, when it's time to cut the Irish potato, and we are talking about the big seed now, because remember, the small seed, it really needs cutting. You just go ahead and plant that. What you want is to have a knife. And you want to ensure that the knife is basically sanitized or sterile, basically. So what you are going to do is you want to have a container with solution that you will dip your knife in. So if you have more than one Irish potato cutting, you don't want to transfer fungus or bacteria from one Irish potato to the next. So what you want to do is have your knife, when you finish cutting one Irish potato, you dip your knife, right? Clean it off, and then you use it on the other Irish potato. And this will basically minimize any transfer of of bacteria or fungus to the other Irish potato. And these are things that we initially need to do. You know, the processes are the things that we do initially before planting is very critical, is very important. So just bear in mind and adhere to these things. So what happens is, when it comes on to cutting your Irish potato, you cut your Irish potato because you need multiple planting material. Of course, there are certain weight or size that you want your planting material to be. 2 to 3 ounces is normally a good size or weight to have your planting materials. But what happens is that with the big seed, you find that they weigh a lot. Now the one that I have in my hand basically weighs 231 grams. Now of course I can get multiple planting material out of this. So what I did was calculated half of this Irish potato, right? And then what I immediately realized was, oh, a quarter of this Irish potato would basically fall within range. So what I did was calculated 231 grams so I multiplied it by 0.25, and that is a quarter, of course, in decimal. And I got approximately 57 grams, and that was the perfect size, or within the perfect size for the planting material to be. So what I did was put down the Irish potato flat, and I kind of highball where half is. So when I highball where half is, I kind of highball where quarter is. So once I highball where quarter is, right, I cut the Irish potato there. So I know that I would basically doing an approximation that is very close to the size, to the 57 grams that I need for my planting material to be. So what I should tell you also is that there are many sprouts on an Irish potato, right? And even when you put it down to sprout, you will find that some will sprout and some will not sprout. But that doesn't mean that will not sprout, or we call them highs, right? We call them highs, but it is essentially a bud where sprouts will come out of. So if you find that an high hasn't sprouted, it doesn't mean that it will not sprout. It might just need some more time, right? So as I said, you have multiple sprouting or highs on one Irish potato. Of course, a bigger Irish potato will have more sprouts than a smaller Irish potato. Now the question is, should I plant my Irish potato as is with all these hair of a sprouting, or with all these sprouts on it? The thing with that is, when you plant an Irish potato planting material with many sprouts, you find that you will get more Irish potato because each sprout is a potential plant that will produce Irish potato. You find that you will have more Irish potato, but they'll generally be smaller. But if you plant a planting material that has one sprout, you find that the Irish potatoes it produces will be much bigger. Like for example this one, or even larger than this. Because what happens is, if you have a cake and you have many people, you'll find that the cake will have to be cut into smaller pieces. Or sometimes persons might not get any because it's just not enough. It's the same thing with the Irish potato planting material. If you have many sprouts, you will find that each sprouting will be getting a small amount of the resource within the soil, the water, the nutrients, and the oxygen. But if you have one sprouting per planting material, you find that that one sprouting will have access to more resources. So it is up to you if you want many Irish potato or you want to have a few that is of a good size. So it is up to you what you want to do. Now you have cut your Irish potato, the big seed. So if you find that the small seed is a little bit out of range, then you can go ahead and plant it. You don't need to cut it. Just plant it as is, right? But the big seed, You can cut it because, of course, the weight exceeds the range of 57 to 85 that we want to be in. Of course, the range can vary, but that is generally an acceptable range out there when planting Irish potato. Now, when you cut your Irish potato, how do you plant it? If the seed is big and you cut it, do you turn the cut side up or do you turn it down? Now, this is another area that we need to be clear on, right? Some YouTubers might tell you that, okay, you turn the cut side up, and some might tell you that you turn it down. Now, you should ask yourself, what difference does it make? When you plant a plant or a seed, the shoot will not grow down. If it turns down, you will always see it bending going up to the light. So as you can see, to me, in my opinion, based on the phototropism of shoots, you know, shoots are positively phototropic, meaning that they will always grow towards the sunlight. Oh, and I forgot. After you cut your Irish potato, you need to dip it again in the fungicide solution, because remember, you have created an open wound. Of course, some people might tell you that, okay, you leave it and you just naturally for it to air dry. You can do this, but when you cut it and you leave it naturally for it to air dry, it is a time or a period that you can also introduce fungus and bacteria onto that open wound. But when you cut it, if you dip it, you are kind of creating an additional barrier, right, to protect that planting material from fungus and bacteria, right? So as I said, it brings us again to prevention is better than cure. So initially, when you are going to start working with your Irish potato, dip it in the fungicide solution, or if you don't want to use chemical, if you don't want to use synthetic means or chemicals, you can make your own fungicide. You can use sodium bicarbonate, and that is basically baking soda. So you can make a baking soda solution and just dip your Irish potato. So you dip your Irish potato initially before you start, and then when you cut it, you dip it again. For now, we have spoken about seed selection and we have spoken about seed preparation, and I think I've covered the major things. I hope this better clarifies the whole process. Again, if there are any questions or any comments, please put them in the comments area, and please also remember to subscribe to my channel. So I'll see you again in another video. Thank you.